today I'm going to be talking about the Michael Jackson allegations, everything surrounding the case, all the lies, and pretty much debunking it. I'm only going to be using factual evidence, court documents, FBI files, taped phone calls, interviews, etc. Stuff that has been proven by people who have actually investigated the case. I think it's very beautiful that a lot of people currently have been speaking out in Michael's defense, and a lot of people have been coming to the realization that he did not do it. I think it's been a long time coming just because of how painfully obvious it is that he didn't do it. But when you have somebody as famous as Michael Jackson, you hear something, you believe it, and you run with it. Which, it's very sad, but that's how it works. The only time I'm going to be mentioning Leaving Neverland is now. It's a waste of time. It's a known hoax. Judges have quite literally thrown out the case because they know that the motive is only for money. Their timeline was not accurate when they said that certain things were built at Neverland. They weren't at the time that they were saying. So, they literally had different storylines and chose the one that they thought would be most beneficial to them, but it backfired. So I think it's very shitty that so many people try to use Leaving Neverland as a credible source when it has been debunked so many times. It's been debunked so many times. And it's like the only thing that people who try to say Michael is guilty have to argue with when, you can't even argue with it. Like those people see these facts and they're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. You can't argue with facts. Facts don't lie, people do. So this is going to be focusing mainly on the first allegations because that's where everything stems from. Everything has been built off of the original allegations. And it opened the floodgate for people to try to take down Michael and try to, do the same thing that Evan Chandler did. So yeah, it's just mainly going to be talking about the Chandlers and one around 1995 that was quickly debunked. While I am known as a Michael Jackson fan, that has nothing to do with my belief on his innocence because, he's been proven innocent. But I actually started out, as a kid believing the lies, and it did not take me very long to research and to realize he didn't do it. So many people spread so much false information, and like I said, you hear that and you believe it, you run with it. You don't even think twice about, looking into it. So that's why I'm making this video. That's why so many other creators and, music lovers have been making this type of video because I think it's about time people know the truth. I want to give big credits to Jessica Ville. She has a beautifully produced video on the same topic, debunking the Michael Jackson allegations with only evidence. A few of my clips are actually going to be from her video. This is in no way any hate to the kids who were forced to say stuff against Michael. The kids from the 90s and the 2000s have come forward and said that their parents made them do it for money. So this is in no way any hate to them because they are victims, not victims of Michael, but victims of a form of abuse from their parents making them do that. This will also obviously be going into the settlement and the criminal trial because a lot of people don't know that Michael actually had no choice in whether or not he was going to settle or not. People around him forced him to settle because of the time period that these allegations came out. He really didn't even have time to deal with it. So his lawyers have come out and said he should have went to trial because he would have won.
Michael Jackson told me in no uncertain terms that settling that case in 1994 was the biggest mistake he'd ever made. He should never have settled it. He should have fought it through a trial. He would have won. It was an absurd case. But he was advised, he told me, by lawyers, by business advisors, to settle it and get rid of it.
In the criminal trial, a lot of people like to say that Michael bought his innocence, but there was a criminal trial in 2005 where he was found innocent. You can't buy your way out of a criminal trial. You can't settle a criminal trial. You have to be either found guilty or innocent. And Michael was found innocent. So I'm going to start out with some very concrete evidence, just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with. So the FBI first investigated Michael in 1993 after the first allegations came out. So they did everything. They flipped Neverland inside out, and they found nothing. So they did string searches, and when you look at these files, it comes up as nothing. Absolutely nothing. They also scrubbed his computers, and it comes up as negative for explicit child content, which, you know, in this kind of case, that's a guarantee. But in Michael's case, there was nothing. That's why when you look at the synopsis of the case, it says to administratively close case. So they were asking for the case to be closed because they had no leads, no evidence, absolutely nothing to prove that he did this. So they were going in expecting to find, you know, all of this, and they found nothing. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, I'm gonna try to keep this as organized as possible, but there's just so much to go through. In this case, I might go off a little bit, but we're gonna try. So I'm gonna start out with Michael's background and why he had confrontation issues and why he had such a problem saying no. Michael's family and people who he was close with have said that Michael was a pushover, but there's reasons for that. So Michael grew up in Gary, Indiana, and he was a show business kid. He was in the Jackson 5 from the time he was 5 years old. So he was in this business since he was a toddler. They got signed to Motown when he was around 8. So he was famous from the time he was 8 years old to 50 when he died. So he was in it his whole entire life. And he had a very, very abusive father. Joseph was very, very cruel, very evil. He was both physically and mentally abusive to his children.
I got him. And I was crying. And I said, Joseph, if you hit me again, I'm not performing. You're like, what the fuck did you say? I'm like, you hit me again, Joseph. And I wasn't even 9 years old. I was probably just about 7. I said, Joseph, if you hit me again, and I was crying my eyes out. I said, if you hit me again, I am not performing.
And it was just like me dying. And you just flipped all over your face, your back, everywhere. And I always hear my mother back, no, Joe, you're going to kill him, you're going to kill him, no. You know, like, I was like, I would just give up. Like, there was nothing I can do, you know. And I hated him for it. Hated him. And you look in the audience, he'd make a face like this. You'd go, oh, I can't mess up, he's going to kill us. It would just scare the bejesus out of you. And you'd be like, everybody's clapping you like looking at you hard, like, don't you mess up, you know. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm in trouble after the show. We hear his car coming down the drive. We always drove this big Mercedes, and he drives real slow. Chandler's home, quick! Boom, door slam, everybody runs to their room. Like there's sometimes I'd be in bed at night, sleeping, it's 12 at night, the door's locked. So I'm giving you 5 seconds, you're gonna open, I'm gonna kick it down. And you start kicking it. Boom, kick it, like breaking the door down. Why do you sign that contract today? I go, I don't know. He goes, well, sign it. If you don't sign it, you're in trouble. So you would sign? I had to. He was very physical. He'd throw you and hit you hard as he can. I'll never forget this. Janet and myself, I would say, Janet, shut your eyes. She'd go, okay, they're shut. I said, picture Joseph in a coffin, he's dead. Did you feel sorry? She would go, no. That's what we would do to each other as kids. We'd like play games.
Michael got it the worst because, you know, Joseph saw it as tough love, and, you know, Joseph knew that Michael was his star child. Like, he was the star. If you look back at videos of Jackson 5 and them performing, you hear this little boy who is 8 years old singing like that. It's insane. And Joseph knew that. So he was the hardest on Michael. And it was awful. And this is where Michael's, you know, confrontation issues stem from, because when he was a kid and he would say, no, I don't want to perform, or like all of this, like he would get beaten into it. So that's why later on you'll see why he was quite a pushover with certain things. And it really is heartbreaking. He went through so much. But this is where the age regression stuff comes in. So if you don't know what age regression is, it's when the brain goes back to the age of trauma, when certain events happen and when you're in a situation that reminds you of it. But the misconception with Michael is people think his case was very severe when it really wasn't. People like to believe that he thought, he was a 5-year-old. He didn't. He was very much, an adult. The only way it really showed was Neverland and his childlike innocence to where he could always have fun. So the Neverland Ranch was essentially built out of trauma, and for other reasons, but we'll get into that. It had a theme park, it had a train wrapping around the whole property. It was beautiful. It was like his very own Disneyland, because Michael did not have a childhood. His whole childhood was recording and performing, and when you would get to go to the park, he was in the recording studio. So he wanted to relive that. So he would collect all of these, figurines, and he was very, very, very big on antiquing and collecting like old Disney figurines and stuff. So when you hear that, and when professionals hear that, they say Michael did not match the pedophile profile, because while pedophiles will use this stuff to lure in children, Michael got it for himself, and he built this beautiful Disney-like property for himself, and he collected these, childlike figurines for himself. So he doesn't even match the profile, And later on, Neverland became kind of a charity place. Michael had a very big heart and a passion for helping children and helping ill children. It was very well known that while Michael was on tour, he would go visit hospitals and visit all these ill children who, their dream was to meet Michael Jackson. And
I do as many hospitals as I do concerts. I do as many orphanages as I do concerts. But because it's good news, the press don't cover it. They want bad news. But I do it from my heart. I don't do it to wave a flag and say, look at me. We bring bags of toys and posters and albums, and you should see how it transforms these kids. They jump up and down and they're so happy.
He would save kids' lives. There was a case where he met a little boy who needed a liver, and, the doctors told him he is going to die if he doesn't get a liver, and Michael promised him, I will find you a liver. And he did. He saved that little boy's life.
This is Lisa Marie and myself at a hospital in Budapest, and I saw this little kid. His name was Farkas. He was very sick. He was green in the face, but he had this glow and this sparkle in his eye. I asked this nurse, what's wrong with this kid? She said that he needs a liver. So I said, does that mean he's going to die? She said, yes, he's going to die unless he gets a liver. I said, I'm not going to let him die, this sweet, sweet angel. No matter what it takes, I'm going to find a liver for him. So I sent my organization around the world. We went all over the place, and it took a long time. And I said, I'm not giving up. I'm not going to have this child die. I was so happy when I got a phone call. They told me we found the liver, and he has his life. And I'm so proud.
So he had a passion for helping children and for giving these kids the childhood that Michael never had. So Neverland ended up being a place for ill children and underprivileged children to come and have a Disneyland-like experience, which they wouldn't be able to have otherwise. They would get to meet Michael Jackson, and a lot of these kids did end up passing, but Michael wanted their last, experience to be magical. He had a big thing for magic. He donated over $500 million to charity over his lifetime. So his relationship with children was only to help them and only to literally save their lives, which that's how Neverland even started. He built it out of trauma, but he used it as a way to give children an escape. A lot of kids who were in show business, like he was, their escape was Neverland, like Macaulay Culkin, for example. Macaulay had he's a Home Alone kid, by the way. He had a very horrible childhood. His dad was very physically abusive, and Michael saw himself in this kid, and he was like, I'm gonna do whatever I can to get you out of that. So, Macaulay was constantly at Neverland because it's an escape. So that's what his dynamic was with kids. It was only to help them. But then, of course, later on, it would be flipped upside down. So now the question is, how did this all start? How did Michael even meet the Chandlers? Let me tell you, because it's a wild fucking ride. Okay, so Michael knew a man named Dave Schwartz. Dave owned a storage facility that Michael used, so Dave and Michael were the acquaintances. He didn't know the Chandlers at the time. Dave knew the Chandlers. The Chandlers consist of Jordan Chandler, June, and Evan Chandler. Jordan is the little boy, and he was a huge fan of Michael. He wore the fedora, the white glove, he had posters everywhere, the whole thing. So when Dave realized this, he was like, okay, let's get you guys connected so you, Jordan, can meet Michael. And when this did finally happen, June and Jordy just fangirled. June was also a big fan of Michael. In 1984, she actually sent Michael fan mail after his Pepsi incident when he got burned. So that gives you an idea of how big of fans they were of Michael. So when they did finally meet, people who were there said it seemed like June was almost forcing Jordy onto Michael. Like, they were just coming off very strong, and this made Michael feel like he owed Jordan something because of how big of a fan he was. So he was like, okay, I have Neverland, you can come over, meet me, ride some of the roller coasters, all of that. So this quickly turned into June becoming friends with Michael, getting very close with Michael, and Jordan becoming mesmerized by this pop star, the literal king of pop. It's Michael fucking Jackson. Who wouldn't it be? So this is where Evan Chandler comes in. Evan Chandler was a dentist who was an aspiring filmmaker. He actually got shut down for malpractice, but his big dream was to be a filmmaker, and he was going to do whatever it took to get there, to break into the business. And he was a deadbeat. He was horrible. He wasn't even in Jordan's life. He owed like $70,000 in child support. So that gives you an idea of how much of a deadbeat this man was. And he really only came back into Jordan's life when he realized how close June and Jordy were getting to Michael. He didn't like, especially that June was getting very affectionate with Michael. Even though they were divorced, he was getting very jealous. And he was getting very jealous that this pop star was, taking his son's attention away. Michael was becoming a father figure to Jordan, and Evan did not like this. And like I said, Michael had a very hard time saying no. So if Jordy wanted to come to Neverland 8 times a week, 10 times a week, that's what he was going to do. And eventually this turned into the Chandlers asking for a lot. My bills are due. Can you pay them? They even asked for a house on the property. Michael bought them cars, houses, paid their bills, bought all this stuff for Jordan and for June, bought jewelry for June, and they were getting very needy and very greedy. And Michael soon did get tired of this, but like I said, he had confrontation issues because of his childhood trauma. So he would hide out in Neverland when the Chandlers would come unannounced. He would hide. That's how bad it was, because he didn't want to see them. So, you know, people who worked for him were like, okay, how long are you going to keep this up for? How long are you going to hide? And, you know, LaToya even came over. LaToya is Michael's sister. She came over and she was like, you gotta stop surrounding yourself with people that only want your money. But Michael felt bad because, you know, Jordan was such a huge fan. And, you know, what was he gonna do? But as Michael slowly started distancing himself from the family, this is where Evan started getting angry and just pissed off. You know, he was already getting mad that Michael was stealing Jordy and June's affection. He was quoted telling Dave, like, there was nothing coming between this family. And he was calling Michael evil for it and all of this stuff. And then when he started distancing, he was getting pissed off. He, you know, started asking Michael for money to start films. He asked for $20 million. $20 million. And there's actually a recording of Michael's lawyer and Evan's lawyer having a conversation. And, you know, Michael's lawyer was like, he's not taking the deal.
The last time. He has rejected the deal, period.
For one project, yes.
Okay. So then there is no deal. Remember?
Right.
I said take it or leave it.
Bingo.
Okay. Then we don't have to have...
And this was the straw that broke the camel's back. When Michael said no to 20 million, Evan brought it down to 1 million or somewhere around there. It was lower, but it was still a lot, and Michael said no. So after this, Evan started creating a plan to take down Michael. They didn't know what the plan was yet, but they knew that Michael was going to get destroyed. There is actually a recording of Evan talking about taking down Michael, and this was before the allegations even came out. And he was just saying all of this horrible stuff. So here it is.
And is going to be humiliated beyond belief. He will not believe it. He will not believe what's going to happen to him. Beyond his worst nightmares. Sell one more record. This attorney I found, I interviewed several, and I picked the nastiest son of a bitch I could find. Once I make that phone call, this guy is just going to destroy everybody in sight. Any devious, nasty, cruel way that he can do it. And I've given him full authority to do that. It'll be a massacre if I don't get what I want. If I go through with this, I win big time. I will get everything I want, and they will be destroyed forever. They will be destroyed. June is going to lose Jordy. She will have no right to ever see him again.
Yeah.
That's fact, Dave. That's what's
Does that help?
Michael's career will be over.
Does that help Jordy?
Michael's career will be over.
And does that help Jordy?
It's irrelevant to me.
Like, whenever I hear that recording, my heart just fucking breaks, bro. Like, Michael had no idea. No idea. And it just shows how bad he was set up. So like I said, that was, you know, before the allegations even came out. Evan just knew he was going to take down Michael. And he had a plan. So he hired Barry Rothman, which is, you know, a well-known lawyer. And he will do whatever it takes to win. The illegal work, the dirty work, all of it. And that's who Evan hired. I want to pinpoint some things from that phone call. Evan kept saying, if I go through with this, I win big time. If I don't get what I want. And he was quite literally asked, does this help Jordy? And he says, that's irrelevant to me. If you were after a man who was supposedly sexually assaulting your son, would you say that? Fuck no. So after Evan hires Barry, he goes to Michael one more time and says, if you don't give me this money, I'm going through with this and I am releasing this and I'm going to put these out. And Michael is adamant. He's like, no, I'm not giving you the money.
He instead goes directly to Michael Jackson and his legal team and starts demanding $20 million.
Trying to get the money so he can make a movie.
His lawyer gets in touch with Michael Jackson's camp and says $20 million and nobody will ever hear about these allegations. And Michael Jackson is adamant that he is not going to give Evan Chandler.
So when you hear that, you realize that Evan went, like I said, to Michael before he even went to the authorities. So if this was a real sexual assault case, Evan would go to the authorities, but he went to Michael to ask for the money again. Think about that. I would like to pinpoint that from day one to now, Jordy has said Michael did not do this.
Matter is, if I had even the slightest doubt that Michael Jackson was innocent, I wouldn't be speaking out. I heard directly from Jordan Chandler that he didn't believe that Michael Jackson was capable of the things he was being accused of. And that's very powerful. Every allegation, in a sense, is built upon the original 1993 allegation.
He actually got emancipated from his parents. And may I remind you that after Jordan Chandler kept telling everybody, no, Michael didn't do this, my dad forced me to say this, Evan Chandler ended his own life. That is guilt. So now we enter the time where the allegations are released and all hell breaks loose. Everything begins. Here we go. Okay, so when they were first released, Michael immediately was like, what the fuck? Everybody was confused, obviously, except for Evan. The media was having a frenzy. Everybody was going crazy. And it is a well-known fact that 90s tabloids and 90s journalists did not fact check anything. They hear a story and they run with it. So when this was released, people were biting. People were like, I'll interview this, I'll interview that. And they wanted people to come in and interview about Michael, but it's not what you think. They were being paid to lie on Michael's name and say they saw stuff that they didn't.
So National Enquiry that he knew some family that knew the Jacksons, and they called me on the phone and asked me to come to the hotel. I said, I'm here to help Michael. Oh, he said, oh no, we don't, that ain't what we want with you. We heard it that your boy spent nights at the house. We want to know if Michael tampered with him. I just picked him up or touched him in any kind of way. If he did, we got $200,000 for you. I said, huh? He said, you show what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a check up, a contract up, and I'm going to show you we're going to give you $200,000.
So then you go to Germany, you get another 20,000. You go to Italy, another 20,000. Before you know it, you're up $200,000, and that is enough for a family to come forward and talk.
It happened repeatedly where people of dubious character were treated as credible sources when anybody with just an iota of investigative savvy would know that these are not people that you want to be staking your reputation on. They were people that changed their story depending on how much money you offered them.
The first time I heard the story about Jackson, his hand was outside the kid's pants. They were asking $100,000. As soon as their price went up to $500,000, the hand went inside the pants. So come on.
So if they were to say certain stuff, it would be like $200,000. If they were to say certain stuff, it would go up. The more they say and the worse it is, the more they get paid. And this is where LaToya Jackson's part in it appears, because this is a very important part of this case. So LaToya Jackson around this time was doing interviews about Michael and saying that she thinks he's a pedophile. This is a heartbreaking story. So she was in a very, very, very abusive relationship with her manager, also her husband.
I couldn't say hello to my friends. I wasn't allowed to speak to people. He had total control of me.
I thought at least you'd come to the ladies' room with me and...
No, I couldn't do that on my own. Kathy, you don't have a clue. I would hear conversations and this person was going to die, and then turn on TV on the news. This man fell off the building. I would hear these things. Why would you do that to me? I'm sorry. And that's what people didn't realize. And now you get it, why I wouldn't speak and why I couldn't do anything. It was like a Stepford wife. And you guys, nobody got it.
And he was forcing her to go on interviews and say all this shit about Michael that wasn't true. And interviewers literally saw this and saw that her husband was telling her what to say. And they were worried about her. They were like, are you okay? Like, she was being fed what to say. through her earpiece.
As the interview progressed, host Ray Martin became just a little bit concerned about LaToya's mental state.
LaToya, have you had psychiatric help?
The way he's talking, he sounds like he's an abuser, the way he's speaking.
Have you had psychiatric help?
He sounds exactly like he's an abuser.
Who? Who sounds like their abuser? Well, Ms. Jackson carried on with that nonsense for about another 25 minutes, all the time being prompted by someone in the studio, but off camera. Presumably her husband, manager Jack Gordon, until our bizarre interview ended this way.
People like you will let this go on, and it's very, very wrong.
Who's talking to you in the background?
I refuse to sit here and listen to you talk this way. I think it's wrong of you.
Who's talking to you in the background?
So I have nothing else to say to you whatsoever. I think what you're doing is wrong. I'm sorry. Goodbye.
And of course, she now has come out to say, no, Michael is not a pedophile. He never did this.
Jack Gordon forced you to say that your brother was a pedophile. Did you think he was?
No, I did not. The courts have proven that too as well.
Just to make things very clear, you recanted your accusation. Are you sure today that your brother never had any undue relationship with a child?
Barbara, Michael is not. He is not.
He is not a pedophile.
No, he's not.
It's well known that she wasn't in that relationship, and it's awful, it's heartbreaking, and she apologized to Michael, and she called him one night, and she was saying, like, that wasn't me, and Michael said, I know, that wasn't you, I realized it wasn't you, and from that night forward, she defended his name, and she still continues to do so. So while Michael is being screwed over left to right by these bullshit interviewers, in these bullshit interviews, and all these claims, he was being pressured to settle this civil case, pay the money that Evan wanted. And Michael did not want to settle, as you heard in the interview at the beginning of the video with his lawyer. He didn't want to. But, everybody, including Michael, just wanted to get rid of it. He had tours to go on. He had songs to record. He couldn't deal with this. And it came down to Michael had no choice in settling or not. He was told he is going to settle. And that's that. And that forever tarnished, the situation, forever tarnished it. It made him look horrible. And Michael knew that. And he said, he told everybody the biggest mistake he ever made was settling that case. But he had no choice. And this is going to carry on into the 2005 trial where he was found innocent. Like I said, you cannot buy your way out of a criminal case, a criminal trial, and you can't do it. It's impossible. You're either found guilty or you are found innocent. Michael was found 100% innocent and was acquitted of all charges. It's court documents giving you all the information that you need, everything. He was found completely innocent. So that's why it's so frustrating when people try to say, oh, he bought his innocence, blah, 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 blah. No, he didn't. The actual trial that mattered, which is the criminal trial, he was found innocent. I cannot stress that enough. So now I'm going to go into the accusation that came around 1995, which was not taken seriously. They did a really bad job at lying. Nobody took him seriously. It was debunked very quickly. This mother forced her son to say that he was assaulted by Michael. He said, no, it didn't happen. And wait until you hear who coached this boy to say what he did.
Fairly believable too. During police interviews, the child broke down and confirmed that he had been coached.
About Neverland, about Havenhurst, about Disneyland, about Michael Jackson's body. Where did he get all that information?
He got it from me.
This kid is a A1, #1 liar.
Professional. Rodney Allen is currently serving a life sentence in a Canadian prison for pedophilia.
Rodney Allen, a convicted pedophile, coached this little boy to say what he did about Michael. And he admitted it. He said he got it all from me. When you really process everything I just told you, and you realize just how wrong these people did Michael, it's heartbreaking. When you realize what the accusations really were, if you even want to call them that, it's just money-hungry parents whose kids have come out and said Michael did not do anything. Even the people around him who were trying to help him get out of this did him dirty and did him wrong because they forced him to settle, and it forever tarnished his reputation, and it makes him look guilty. But when you realize why he actually settled and he had no choice, that goes away. And it's really heartbreaking and it's really sad, but I'm very, very, very glad that so many people currently are doing what I'm doing and, you know, really researching the actual facts and not just people's words with no backup evidence. And he's getting the justice that he deserves, and I'm glad to be a part of that. So if you stuck around this long, thank you. I hope you learned something, and I don't care if this gets like 3 views, just so those 3 people know what really happened. So thank you for watching, and you should go listen to some Michael.